Welcome to Kava and Kettlebells, where we talk about kava, fitness, and life. Let's get kavafied.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Kava and Kettlebells. This is Charles.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning back in. This is Heidi. All right, today we are talking about marriage. Now, society always tells us marriage is so hard. The movies portray it as being so hard. You're always going to have this inevitable event that almost separates you, and the songs and everything is very dramatic, and marriage is this challenge. And you know what? Like, we disagree.
Yeah, fuck that, man.
We've been married. We're celebrating our 13th anniversary. We got married kind of young, 24 is when 23. We got married at
23. Yeah.
Yeah, 23. And and so we disagree. We feel like when approached the right way, marriage is not hard. And so we just kind of want to talk about the ways that we approach marriage, things we do for us that has made it, this really fun journey, this fun ride. And we do not think of marriage as a challenge.
Yeah. And so again, we've been asked quite a bit about our marriages from people who listen to our show, who've been following us for the past 2.5 years, have been doing the podcast. But also friends and stuff will ask us too, how we make things work. So we kind of figured we would do an episode just about our relationship and how we kind of work it and, for our marriage. And honestly, some opinions and things specific to us. Some stuff might, ruffle feathers, but at the end of the day, this is Heidi and I's relationship, what makes us work and what gives us a very satisfying marriage. So I realize that it might not work for everyone, but again, we get asked quite a bit, how we do maintain such a good marriage. So we figure we just talk about it today.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into it.
All right.
So the first one I think is very important, and it sounds like, common sense, but I feel like it isn't common sense for everyone. And that is, when you're getting married, you really need to go into this as a team. Mm-hmm. You are a team. It is no longer yours and mine. It is no longer his and hers. You're a team.
It's a one.
Well, yeah, you're one. You are a family. You are this new unit. And the biggest thing that I just don't understand personally how people do this is bank accounts, when
finances.
Yeah, finances. It's one family. And I hear this from a lot of people. Well, he pays this bills, I pay this bill, or she does this, she made this money, it goes here, and they have separate bank accounts. And to me, that just confuses me.
Yeah. And it's always something that's his money or her money. At the end of the day, when you're in a marriage relationship, financially, you should both be on the same page. And I say this realizing that for a lot of marriages, and you look at the statistics, a lot of things that come up, financial hardships or just, not being on the same page financially, even if it's not a hardship, even if it's just not being on the same page, typically a lot of times is an issue. And with a lot of people that I've known and who've had issues in their relationships, in their marriages, one of the big things that we've both always seen is it's like a black and white when it comes to finances. And it leads to a lot of animosity. It leads to a lot of just, unsureness on proceeding forward with, goals, like financial goals, right? Whether it's for, purchases, investing, budgeting, all that stuff as a household, as a unit. You both should be on the same exact page about the dollar in versus the dollar out. And that takes away a lot of that ambiguity and a lot of that, I would say sort of tension when it comes to finances is, again, when it's separated, it's like you're living your own little world.
Yeah.
And one of the blessings about being married, especially when you do have, for instance, we're dual income, it is harnessing that power of both the finances together and then, going forward and conquering your financial goals.
Yeah. And so Charles brought up a good point is you need to be on the same page. You need to plan financially. What do we want to do with our finances? What do we want our finances to look like in 5 years? And we also ask each other every time we make purchases, even if it's I'm going to buy a pair of shoes online. It's not like I'm asking permission, but, I'm letting them know, hey, I'm going to buy this pair of shoes online, or actually it's him. He buys all the shoes, not
I
me.
do. Yeah. All right. All right, call me out. So yes, I do like my shoes and my
He does.
sneakers. I do.
His shoes and his watches.
It's my shoes, my watches, jewelry. Like those are my two material things that I will be very fully transparent.
Yeah.
Like I do enjoy collecting and buying.
Yeah, and it's not like he asks me permission. But for example, I do our budget, he does our investing. So he lets me know like, hey, I purchased, this pair of shoes. You're going to see that, on the budget. But I think that's important. And we know couples who are like, well, it's my money. I don't need to tell him what I'm spending. And it's like, again, it's such a bad mentality.
Yeah, just think about how that sounds.
Yeah. Yeah. Like pause, listen to that. If that's you, listen to that back. You are becoming a unit. You're getting married or you're already married, but you're essentially saying like, this is mine. I don't need to tell you because you don't view yourselves as a pair. You don't view yourselves as a unit. And again, that's going back to you're not entering that marriage with the right mentality.
Yeah. And, me personally, I've always been really big into investing and finances. And in fact, when I almost got out of the military, I almost went to become a financial advisor because it is like a passion for me. Even just helping people with their finances. I do it with friends and family. I just, I enjoy it and I really like learning.
He's good at it. He's really good at it.
Yeah, but, like how Heidi and I do it is she does all the budgeting. So she's in control of all the budgeting, kind of like the bill paying, all that kind of stuff. And then I manage both of our investments. So, both of our 401ks, both of our Roths, and then our joint brokerage account. I manage everything, but again, she has eyes on it. She has access to it. She knows what I'm doing. When I'm about to make a big, let's say like trade, or let's say I'm moving money to a certain account and I'm investing into something. And a lot of times, like too, if I'm investing into something like more risky, I'll let her know. I can explain like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And this is why I'm doing it.
It goes over my head, but he lets me know.
So yeah, number one, definitely finances. Get on the same page. It will take away a lot of the animosity and it will get you guys both, again, it's a marriage, so you're acting as a unit.
You are a team. It is not him versus her.
No, and honestly, like it's a better way to leverage your money as well. It's
yes.
a smarter way to do it.
Absolutely. All right. So this kind of leads us to point 2. And this is what I feel like ruffles a lot of feathers, and society likes to be like, oh my gosh, like no. But the man is the leader. And, that's how we run our family. And there's a really great book that we read when we got married. It's called Love and Respect. It's by Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. I might have pronounced that wrong. But it's about the idea that a woman needs to feel loved and a man needs to feel respected. That's how we were designed. And so we very much, run our family that, Charles is the head of our household and he is the leader.
And when a lot of people hear that, and maybe even more so from females, might be like, oh, that's so sexist or misogynistic. And it's not supposed to be that way. And in fact, a lot of men will turn it around and will actually use it against their wives or their partners. And for instance, like one thing right now that I see is like a big, I don't know, like term or like
it's a new trend. I don't even want to call it a trend, but
like a genre. I guess.
I don't know, but
the whole like trad wife thing, right?
Which stands for a traditional wife.
And it's all these guys who expect their wife to just like sit around, hand foot on them, making them food, cleaning the house, doing all stuff, raising the kids, doing everything, right?
Not having friends, not hanging out, not going out and doing anything, just really focusing on the house and the husband.
And not even like having a say in the household. And that's not what we believe. And when we say that the man leads the household, again, we're Christians, so we bring a lot of this back to, the word and kind of the foundation, right, of how we interpret, the Bible and everything like that as well. But, as the man, I see it as my responsibility to lead my family, right? So I should be able to protect them, provide for them, and to, really just be that kind of leader in the household. And I don't expect Heidi to take a lot of that burden. And she'll tell you herself, like, if she was doing that, she would not be happy.
I wouldn't. And I truly believe that is my role as a woman. That's how I'm created. That's my natural instinct, is to run the house. And it's his natural instinct as a man to lead the family, protect the family, take on those hard burdens. And I wouldn't be happy if the roles were flipped. And, that's not to say, so I work now, but I did not work when our girls were younger. And that was my choice. I wanted to stay home with our kids. I was blessed that we were in an opportunity that I did not need to work when our girls were young, and Charles supported that. And it wasn't that he made me stay home. I wanted to. I didn't want to work. And he said, okay, that's okay. You don't want to work. I will provide for us. I will make sure that you can stay home. And I understand that not everyone has that opportunity, but that was something that I was blessed to do, and he supported me. And then when I was ready, our girls got older and I was ready to enter the workforce, he was the biggest push to get me in there. And he'll tell you, he would, he would find the jobs for me. I was nervous. I was like, I've been a stay-at-home mom for 6 years. I don't belong in the workforce. And he was my biggest advocate and the biggest person, pushing me. So,
and I want to say too that roles shift as well. So as how you start working, and this is where I think a lot of men miss the mark. Again, they expect the wife to take up the slack on everything, especially the more traditional roles. In our household, I do most of the cooking.
It's true. He does.
I do most of the cooking because a lot of times during the day, I'll finish up my workday a little bit earlier sometimes. And so then I like to start getting dinner prep, things like that. And we're also, we're very much meal preppers. So we prep a lot of food for the week, and I do most of that, right? So I'll cook most of the meat. I'll go our, carbohydrates, our potatoes, rice, all that, kind of going. And, I do that to allow Heidi to focus on other things as well. So when we look at traditional roles, I don't think it's so black and white, and again, going back to the whole trad wife thing, I understand some of that, because I think men do want a wife who's supportive, who can take care of kids if they choose to have it, and have some of those traditional roles, right? But at the same time, I think men also need to support their wife, support their dreams, their desires. And again, as a couple, it's that managing relationship to where you're both satisfied, you're both getting what you want from each other, and understanding how to provide that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think going off the trad wife thing, one thing that annoys me about the whole trend, you see all the memes on, Instagram and stuff.
There's a lot, dude.
And they're really nasty. In my opinion, from the man's perspective, and a lot of the people posting this stuff, they expect this woman to be this perfect thing, but they are a shit man.
Yep.
And, Charles is, I'm so proud of the man that Charles is, and that he is my man. And I know, oh my gosh. But because, I feel safe, he provides for us, he is respectful, he supports me. And when I see a lot of these other men, who are super proponents of this trad wife, it's they are lazy. They are not providing that safety and security for their family.
And it's also a lot of it's putting the wife into bondage.
Yes.
By misinterpreting what roles should be. And you see that a lot, and it leads to a lot of, I think, resentment between the sexes, right? And, we've seen it even with a couple of marriages of people that we know and stuff where, the man refuses to accept other roles that, yes, a female would traditionally do. And then, it just leads again to expectations not being met. And especially now, in modern times, things have changed a bit, right? So I think it's, we can't always look to the past. We could take things from the past, but also it's a different day and age, and I think a lot of the principles are still there, foundationally. But no, I'm not going to make Heidi be a stay-at-home mom as my girls get older and don't really need
unless I wanted to. If that's what the woman wants to do, that's awesome. But he wouldn't force me. Sometimes I'll hear moms talking at the activities that our kids go to, and they'll be complaining about their husbands and how, oh, their husband goes to the gym all the time, but he doesn't let me go to the gym. And I'm just what? It's, I don't know. It's a little crazy when I think that. I just think, again, it goes back to being a team and, having those equal balance of roles. And the man leads, but in leading, that also means that he is, supporting his wife and loving his wife in that way and letting her, do the things that are going to make her happy as well.
Yeah. So it kind of goes to the next one, and I kind of hit on it, that we are, again, like you don't have to agree with this, and you can be agnostic, you can be an atheist, you could be Muslim, Jewish, whatever it is, but we are Christians. And so a lot of the values that we derive our life from is from, the Bible, and is from, what we see as God's word, right? And both of us being on the same page about having a foundation that's bigger than ourselves, because, a lot of things that we see people get trapped into is they live purely just on the world, right? And what the world provides and what people provide. And people will let you down. Humans are just humans. They make mistakes. They're not perfect. And everything else is just material shit, right? And it's things that society and culture, develop. And so for us, having a belief system that's bigger than ourselves, that we're both on the same page with, in any time we have an argument or a misunderstanding, we can always bring it back to the word and the Bible and find where, all right, maybe one of us was, off a little bit. And it's an easy way to do it. It's a loving way. And again, it brings us closer to our faith and ultimately helps us grow closer together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you said was huge is when you have this foundation that is bigger than you. So for us, it's, God's word, our Christian faith. And we do this all the time where maybe the other person isn't acting exactly in line with God's word and the other person will call them out on it. And it's not, me calling Charles out or Charles calling Heidi out. It's, hey, I'm just reminding you, this is what God's word says, and you're not really in line with that right now. And it's a way to be able to say that in a non-attacking way, non-aggressive way. And that other person doesn't feel attacked, and they're like, yeah, you're right. And then they feel loved because you weren't scared and you were just bringing them back to God's word, sort of helping them get back in line. And yeah, it works great.
Yeah. And I mean, I know for myself, there's always a couple things that will get in my head, right? And I'll get consumed with. And Heidi, like on a dime, she kind of knows when that's happening and she'll call me out and she'll be like, hey, you're getting too consumed with that, or you're thinking too much about that. And it's taking away your peace, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm so blessed where it's I have a wife who can recognize that. And she brings me back to, and again, this is for us, right? But she brings me back to God's word, or, to, certain sections of the Bible that she'll kind of show me and stuff. And I'll be like, yeah, you're right. And once I kind of recognize that and, see that pattern and then get back to all right, homeostasis, again, brings my peace back.
Yeah.
And having someone who can do that for you, I don't know what else is better. Right?
I know. We're so good. No. But for reals, it just makes it better. It feels good. And every relationship, when people say marriage is hard, there's always going to be things that come up. It's not that we don't fight. It's not that we call them tiffs. We always get in tiffs. Yeah. And things happen, we each get kind of consumed with one thing. And it's a matter of being able to recognize that individually for ourselves and then also in the other person, and being able to work as a team and go over those humps and not just ignoring it. And for us, God's word just has all the answers we need, but it can be anything. You just need to have that foundation that is bigger than you guys that you can turn to. And so it's not each other attacking, the other person.
I think too, if you don't have something that's bigger than yourself, you can be swayed by anything. You can be swayed by what people are saying or, what a show is saying, or even a fucking podcast.
Yeah.
It's going to,
by what we're saying.
Yeah. It's going to blow you around, like a freaking tumbleweed, where you want to have that strong tree, right? With roots deep into the ground. And if you both have that, you can't be shaken by all their shit out there.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of shit out there. There's a lot of people talking. There's a lot of things going on. So again, you got to have something that you both can come back to. So boom, you're on the same page and you can settle stuff because you have something that's bigger than you.
Yes. All right. So this brings us to our fourth point, which is growing together. And we've said this many times, we've been married for 13 years. We've been together for 16, 17 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Since we were...
I was 18 and
we started
he was 19.
When we were like teens.
We're so close. Like I think next birthday or the birthday after will be that point where we celebrated more birthdays together than not together. So we've been together for a long time, and we are not the same people that we were when we first met. And that's okay. Like that's beautiful. It is a beautiful journey when we look back at it and how we have both grown and changed so much. But what I think is so important is, I accept, and I not only accept, but I embrace when Charles, changes, those new changes for him. And same with me. Fitness in general, like, oh man, when we first met, I was not into fitness. That is what my whole journey is about. I was skin and bones, and he was all about fitness, and he wanted nothing more than for me to, live that lifestyle with him. And it took me a while.
It did, but I didn't force it.
You didn't force it.
I loved Heidi for who she was. And, it was something where I just think by example, she saw, I was always so dedicated. This is what's awesome. She always supported me going to the gym. She supported that time, away from the house, away from the kids and stuff, because she recognized that it was important for me. And honestly, fitness should be important for everyone, regardless, marriage, relationship, not just as individual. You should be taking care of yourself physically. We have one body, right? And so you want to treat it right. And that means taking that time for yourself and, developing healthy patterns when it comes to fitness, working out, and eating as well. Yeah.
And so when I, got bit by the gym bug, that, transformed, and that became more of a priority for me. And so a lot of responsibilities at home, they shifted a little bit, and Charles was okay with that. He was excited about that. He embraced that. When I started working, Charles embraced that. We adjusted, we grew together. And I think it's so important that a couple understands that your partner is going to grow, and you cannot be resentful. You need to embrace that, and you need to grow together.
And you should want your partner to grow and to develop and get better and be successful.
Yes.
If you're the same person, if I was the same person I was at 25, I'm 35 right now, I would see that honestly as a failure. That means I wouldn't have grown. I wouldn't have learned anything. I wouldn't have pushed myself to do different things, to try new stuff, right? And all those things add up, and all those experiences that you have, and they change you and they mold you. And, you might have, new experiences or things, and, you might even change your, ideas or your political beliefs or whatever it might be, right? You grow as a person as you get older, and your partner should be able to grow with you and, to support that and to love you through it. And even your relationship should grow as well with that too.
Absolutely. And so I think that is just a huge thing that people, it sounds, again, common sense, and it's not. I think people get stuck on, well, you're not the person you were 10 years ago. Well, no shit. You shouldn't want them to be.
And, I will say, there's something to be said, if your partner turns into something that's that you don't like,
right,
and that is not in line with your relationship, or they're become a person that is not good for you, that's also something to recognize too. And I'm not saying to ignore that, right? So we're talking about change. There's, I think, two different kind of routes to look at, right? There's their natural progression of hey, people just as they get older, based on their experiences and just living life, they're going to develop, they're going to get new interests, they're going to have new things that they want to do or accomplish, right? Versus, let's say that, let's say for hypothetically us, right? Let's say that, in the beginning of marriage, I was, faithful to Heidi. But let's say that as time gone on, I started, getting looser and talking to other girls and, that kind of stuff. Yes, that would be a change that I would hope Heidi would recognize and would not put up with.
Right. Absolutely. But I think it's important to evaluate, like, if you're upset about the changes that are happening, you need to be honest. And is it a negative change that's happening? Or are you just upset that this person is changing and you're not changing with them? So that's what I think is just really important. Yes, if it is something like that, of course, do not put up with, disrespect in that sense. But also, just evaluate honestly. And is this person making negative changes? Or are you just, unhappy with the fact that maybe they're changing at a greater pace than you are?
One example, and I don't think this person will ever watch this podcast or knows what I'm talking about. But for example, like so again, I was prior military. I was in the Air Force, and I was an officer. And officers typically are kind of expected to like do the whole career path, right? And to I'm not saying like enlisted don't do careers either, but like for officers, it's really pushed for us to do the 20 years to try to make all the ranks. And he was a friend of mine, and his wife really liked the military lifestyle, and she really liked him being in the military. She liked his rank and his status and all that stuff, everything that came with it. And he didn't want it anymore, right? And want to do other stuff. And it caused like a divide in the marriage, because she saw it as like, well, now you want to be something that's not you anymore, versus he was like, well, I just want to go do new stuff. I want to be done with this, and I want to go on to a new adventure. So like it's identifying that, like, are you just upset because your partner wants to do something new and you like the status quo and you're afraid to change too? Or is it really like a bad pattern, something that really is bad for the person?
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I think that's a perfect example, and I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about. And yeah, and again, in that situation, if it's the same situation, was this person upset because this was a negative change that the man wanted to make, or was the woman just not supporting who the man actually was and the changes that he had made over the past decade of his life and the new person that he was, and they still wanted him to be the old person?
Yeah.
And so, so I think that's a really good point.
Cool. So the next one.
All right, is our favorite.
It's our favorite. And if you listen to our podcast before, we've had a pretty decent amount of talks on this.
We talk about it a lot.
More when it comes to like, so we've had this talking about how, like, because again, we're kava and kettlebells, so we talk about like botanicals like kava, kratom, things like that, and like
and how they might enhance this.
Yeah. So one of the things, and this is very, very important for us, is regular sex.
Yes.
Okay. Having sex together.
Sexy time. What?
And like, it's crazy to even say this, but like we say this knowing that there are a lot of sexless marriages out there.
There are, and it makes me so sad. Like when I hear that.
It does make me sad. I don't understand it. I know everyone has a different sex drive.
Yeah.
And there can be conflicts when sex drives don't match each other.
Sure.
Right. But, for Heidi and I specifically, again, we're talking about our relationship. We see sex as something that it's not just a physical thing. Like, yeah, like I think Heidi is like the hottest girl ever. So
thank you.
I really,
likewise.
I really enjoy having sex with her. Right. It's very fun for me. And that aspect of, physical, but it's very much for us, like a spiritual
and emotional
thing coming together for us to share that time with each other.
Yes.
And connect.
Absolutely. And I think, people use the excuse of their sex drive, and we could get into that. There's a laundry list of things
There's a lot of ways you can fix that.
You could fix that, but it really is so important for a marriage. And again, we bring it back to our faith and the Bible, and it's in there as well. Like, it is a very integral part of a marriage. And we know people who, oh man, like I knew someone who they had a baby, and their baby was 9 months old, and they had not had sex again since they had the baby. That's crazy. Like, that's crazy. I don't care what your sex drive is, that is not a healthy marriage. Like, a healthy marriage has that physical interaction. That's just part of it. That's part of good releasing of your hormones as well. Like, you need that. And going off of that, I think it's also very important if you have kids that you are physical in front of them. I'm not being,
not saying like having sex in front of them.
No, but but like hugging each other and kissing each other. I think it's so important for kids to see that. And, our kids always joke because Charles is always like, we're always pinching each other's butts, getting a little love tap. I'm not saying you have to do that, but I think it's also really good that our kids see us in that way, and they see us hugging each other, and they see us.
We're not just a
each other.
partnership, right? We're not just a male and female living in the house together, paying bills and putting food on the table. Like, no, we love each other and we're attracted to each other. I think that's really important. Like, and I think that, for us, we have a very active sex life. And I'm not saying that to sound like, oh, look at us, like we're so cool, but like for us, like it's very enjoyable and we look forward to it. And it helps us bond better and we, enjoy that with each other. And it makes things a lot more enjoyable. And for us too, like I go back to the beginning of what I was saying, it's not just a physical thing. It's an exchange of love and emotion on a different level than anything else that you can do. And there's a lot, more to be said about that. And, even the idea of, having sex with a lot of people, right? And how that can, potentially damage someone as well.
Yeah.
Because it is an exchange of a lot of emotions when you're doing it, especially when you're in love with someone and you're doing that act. And for us, it's an integral part of our relationship.
Yeah, like I remember, I'll get a little personal with everyone. Charles is not the only person who, I've slept with, but he's the only person that I've loved. And I remember the day was in your dorm room. And, we were intimate. And I remember thinking like, man, I feel like I'm going to cry. I just remember feeling like this is what making love feels like. And it's different. Like, it's just different. And that's why, people who embrace like, oh, I'm going to go have sex with everyone, like whatever, you do you. But there's such a difference between the physical act of sex and like making love with someone and the emotions and the, just the spirituality that's involved in that. And
again, same too, like I was a young man at one point, right? Before meeting Heidi. And, I look back at that and, I think there's some things where I look back and it's like, I wish maybe I had, maybe not like pursued those avenues and, maybe, waited for, but whatever. It makes us into who we are. Right. And I look back and what makes the difference is like when I met Heidi, and this sounds like people probably roll their eyes, but like I knew like literally like in the first like not in like the first like moments. The first time we actually hung out, like it was not a good thing. That's a whole different story.
It's funny. It's just funny. It's not bad. But.
So like I was in the fraternity at Arizona State, and then she came to like a party.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant
we met up to
gotcha.
Dance, and I was in a bad mood. Wasn't really feeling her. She wasn't feeling me. So we're like, all right, peace. But then like a couple months later, we linked up again and started hanging out. And it's like, I knew, man, she was different than any other girl that I had been with, talked with. And so I don't know. I always say,
they say when you know, and
the same thing, and being intimate with Heidi was and is always a different thing than anything else that I've experienced.
Yeah. So we are firm believers that it is so important for a couple to prioritize that and make time for that. And it's important.
One more thing on that too, because I do want to say that when you have that with your partner and you really develop that sexual relationship, like you're not going to like nothing else out there is like, for me, I personally don't understand when other guys in marriages, relationships, like talk about other girls or look at other girls and make comments on them, because I'm so satisfied at home and I'm so happy with what I have to where it's like, yes, I can, if there's a very, very attractive girl, I can recognize that, yes, she's good looking, right? But
that's okay. I'm not like, I don't feel offended or threatened by that.
No, but it's like, there's nothing there for me. There's no lust. there is no infatuation. Like I can recognize, yes, female, attractive, got it. But there's nothing else in my mind that like wanders because again, like I'm so satisfied with what I have and so happy with it. And I'm so, fulfilled by the sex life I have with my wife that it's literally a waste of seconds in my head to think about that with somebody else.
Yeah, and that kind of, we won't go on a long tangent about this either, but you hear lots of, comedians and songs and movies joke about porn and how like everyone does it, every man does it. And it's like, no, not every man does it. And
that's a whole different like thing. But like, we're both I'm especially very against porn for men. I think it's very damaging to the psyche. It fucks up your perception of sex. And again, like if you're married or in a relationship, like why? You should be having sex, bro, with your fucking wife in person, not sitting there with your dick in your hand looking at a TV screen. Like, no offense, man, but like if you're doing that shit and you're married, like, you should probably go fuck your wife.
So yeah, point 5, like prioritize, sexy time and and enjoy it. Enjoy it. It is a fun thing. Like enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying it, like figure out a way to enjoy it. Okay. So that brings us to point 6, which is, really prioritizing everyday intimacy over occasion-driven romance. And what we kind of mean by that is, we're not big on like birthdays, anniversaries. And if you are, that's okay. Like, I'm not saying that
Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Like, it's not to say that you shouldn't celebrate it, but for us, every day is a celebration. We have sex regularly. Like every day is.
There's no special like anniversary sex.
Yeah. Like.
That shit's like a Monday. I don't know, man.
That was like after the gym yesterday.
That was.
Like real talk.
Yeah. That was a long post cardio session.
Anyways, so again, it's not to say that you can't have fun with holidays, but don't prioritize it and make sure that every day is fun. Like don't be just taking steps, walking through life and then like, oh, it's our anniversary. Like let's have a big celebration because it's our anniversary and that's everyone
in the social media has fucked stuff up, man. And again, it's the whole idea of like it places pressure right on both the man and the woman, right, to be like, well, I have to go get this gift, or I have to do this, I have to do that to show my love, right? And it destroys like that expectation of each other. And really just how you guys should be treating each other every day. Like Valentine's Day should be no different than the day after or the week after, the month before, right? Anniversaries, like, yes, like for sure, like celebrate. We're coming up on our anniversary, but like our 10th anniversary, we were literally moving across the country. We were in Texas in an Airbnb. And like, again, it's...
Yeah, we were at Airbnb that happened to be where his aunt and uncle lived. And so we had them over
and we cooked them dinner,
which was a blessing.
Awesome.
Like it was awesome.
It was such a blessing.
We love them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like honestly, that was like a great anniversary because we got to see my aunt and her husband who are awesome. We love them. But yeah, that was our 10-year anniversary. But again, because it's just the day.
Yes.
At the end of the day, like it's just a day. And if you're expecting like these lavish like vacations or all these things to celebrate, like it turns your relationship into just these milestones that were created by fucking consumerism, right? To go buy the shit, to go do this, to go do that. When it's like, is that really blessing the other person?
Yeah.
Or are you just buying that thing for them because society told you to? And that's your way to show love. Yeah.
And one thing that I learned very early on in our marriage also was to be very like honest and direct. And so follow my thought process here. What I think also building up these days to be this big thing is people will build it up and maybe they're not getting what they want throughout the normal life. Yeah. And so then they're like, oh, well, Valentine's is coming up. I'm going to get all the flowers. I'm going to get all the things I want. And then their partner lets them down and they don't get that. And they feel very sad and upset. And to me, it's like, well, why don't you just like buy the flowers yourself. And that specifically, it was the flowers. I love flowers. And I think it was Mother's Day. It was my first Mother's Day. And like, he didn't get me flowers. And
well, no, you're throwing me under the bus.
No, I'm not throwing you under the bus. Granted, I was still, very postpartum, 2 months postpartum. So still emotional. But that's when I was like, why? I didn't tell him I wanted flowers. I just assumed that like, he knew I wanted flowers, and I was upset when I didn't get it. And
some of that comes because too, like Heidi's never been, and this is the reason I love Heidi. She's never been materialistic.
Right. I'm not. Like, I don't care about
like
gifts and stuff.
And so I was just was like, all right, she doesn't like that kind of stuff. So I'm just not gonna.
I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. Yeah. All I meant by that was so I would start, telling him. I would say like, yeah, I like flowers, and then I just started buying myself flowers because I like having flowers around. And then when he would surprise me, to me, it's so much better when he comes home and surprises me with flowers, just because than a day that like 100,000 other men are getting their wives flowers, Now
I'll say this, like, okay, well, I didn't get. Yeah, this is going to start tiff right now, right?
Tiff to one? No, I'm just kidding.
No, but yeah, jokes aside, right? You, and I guess there's more type of men out there, but like you should be providing a lot more value than flowers.
Yeah.
Like it should be, and I believe this, but like you should be providing high value. Every day should be high value. So if you're not keeping your game up, right, and you're not providing, then like, yes, maybe you do need to go do those things every once in a while because you don't provide value and you have to like wow your person, right? But for us, it is a daily thing. It's not a holiday type thing.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point. The verbiage was good. I don't even know if you realized it, how good it was. Is make every day so great so that the holiday you don't need to wow them on the holiday, because every day is so great. And again, I'm not saying you need to go like above and beyond, but you just need to be a good person, provide that good value to your partner so that they're not feeling like they're missing something that you need to make up for on a holiday,
For everyone thinking like talking shit on makes out get flower stuff.
Oh,
Heidi has received some there's
flowers on her counter right now.
Very expensive gifts from me. So yes.
Yes. And again, so that is the idea of, just making sure that every day is good. Don't save it up for a holiday. Just just live every day, provide that best value you can. All right.
Next one.
Point 7.
This one,
is it? I think
probably gonna probably piss some parents off.
Yeah, it will. And that's okay.
And maybe think like we don't prioritize our kids or something like that. But
it's hard to word this one properly.
Just going to say it, right? If you have kids, you have to still prioritize your marriage over your kids.
Yes.
Once you become a mom or dad, that is not your life, right? You are not just a mom. You are not just a dad. You are also a husband. You're also a wife. You're also all these other things outside of just being a parent.
And I think, again, this goes back to God's word. Like God's word says that. And so that's why we're very firm in this, is that husband and wife need to put each other first. And it's kind of the same idea of you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Like if we are not good, if I'm not good as an individual and we're not good as parents, how are we going to provide the best we can for our kids? You can't. Like it's so important that you put your relationship first and that your relationship is in a good place. And so we, prioritize date night. And a lot of people say, well, we don't have the money for a sitter. We don't have the money for, to go out and go to the restaurant or whatever. You don't have to spend money to spend that quality time together and to have, a date night. You can have that at home.
I remember a lot of times too, like when we were young and just, first starting out, we didn't have a crazy amount of money. And for us, a date night would literally be to go drive to the beach. Because at the time, when we first had our daughter, we were down in Pensacola, Florida. It was literally to be have someone watch the baby for an hour, and we would go drive to the beach, maybe stop at Publix on the way out and like splurge on a sub
Yeah.
and spend an hour at the beach together. And that was, a date night. Yeah, it looks different now because we're in a different spot of life, but no matter what your finances are, and again, it goes back to expectations. Like society tells you that you have to go out and you got to spend money on dinner and a movie and all this stuff. Well, why? Like what value is coming from that? If you really do want to enjoy a nice dinner, we do that a lot too, because we enjoy doing that, then great. But also like we're just as fine going out to a kava bar together and just talking, or even just going like, literally we've done dates where we just go to the gym together.
Yeah. Especially when the girls were younger, that we looked forward to that. Just going to the gym together and just talking and laughing and just having that time together. And it's important. Like, it's so important. You need to prioritize it. Even if it's, I understand people like to watch TV at the end of the night. We do as well. Like, especially you had a long day, a long week. You just want to turn your brain off. Like, that's okay. But making the time, if you do that regularly, to say like, hey, you know what, tonight we're not going to have the TV on. We're just going to talk and we're just going to catch up. And I think that is just so important. And what we mean by not putting the kids first is, kind of going back to the sex, like we like having sex during the daytime. And so that's a priority for us. And we tell the kids like, you need to go have some quiet time in your room. And so that we can go, and people might say, well, you need to spend every minute with them. It's like, no, they can be bored for, 45 minutes or so. And
it's good for them.
It's good for them. And it's good for us to have that break and to fill our cups individually and as a couple.
Yeah. And I think too, like for the naysayers, like, well, okay, well, like if you're not taking care of your marriage, if you're not taking care of each other, like what happens to a lot of people with their marriages? They get a divorce. Then that's not, is that good for the kids? No, probably not, right? To have, a broken marriage like that with their mom and dad and then being separated. So when we say prioritize your marriage over the kids, it's not putting everything away from you guys to your kids, right? I understand there's soccer practice and school and things you got to do for them. And here's the thing, man, I would do anything for my girls, right? Like I love them to death and I would do anything for them. If when they get older, if a guy touches them the wrong way, I don't know, I might end up like, on death row in jail or something like that.
I think our girls are going to have a hard time having guys who aren't scared of him in general. So
there's always someone bigger, right? But same time though, like we recognize that, yeah, like when it comes to like, even say like the weekend, no, we don't spend every waking moment with our kids, and yeah, like a lot of times in the weekend, like we do like to have intimacy time, like during the day, and we'll tell the girls like, hey, like we're going back to our room. You guys need to go like to your rooms. You guys need to find something to do, right? Kind of stay away from our side of the house. And we have that time together. And then Heidi and I are in a really good mood. Then we go do something as a family.
Yeah.
And
we're happier. Like, come on. If you find that you are like, put two and two together. If you find that you are like angry a lot, like anxious, annoyed, and you aren't having sex regularly, I guarantee you there's a connection there. Like, try having sex more.
Or not in that, but like maybe you're just not having time with your partner.
Yeah.
Right? You're not having those good discussions. Like,
yes,
life gets crazy. Like, guys, we get it. Like, we have full-time jobs. We have kids. We do this podcast. We do other stuff on the side. There's only so many hours in the day. Like, I get it, but you got to prioritize that person that you love. So you keep that union, you keep your household, peaceful, and you keep that love and that desire for each other to keep, learning about each other, and keep growing, having fun, and you don't want to let that go.
And it goes back to all the other points. You're a team, you're growing. And so, things change. You may think you know that person, but again, we're always growing. And so you need to talk to them, learn more about them, ask about their day, just really prioritize, that time together.
Yeah.
All right.
Last
final point.
Because we are Kava and Kettlebells, and our podcast is about a lot of sober alternatives other than alcohol. Because again, we go listen to our episodes on kava and kratom and all that, and you can find out about what those do for you and why you should drink those instead of alcohol. But alcohol. Can't tell you how many relationships I've seen alcohol ruin when it comes to boyfriend, girlfriend, fiance, and marriages.
Absolutely. And so ultimately, point 8 is, be sober together. When we say sober, we are referring to alcohol and, hard drugs. We don't know a ton of people who are on the, hard drugs, but so primarily it's the alcohol.
Not really in our framework.
Yeah, it's not our realm. Maybe we just don't know about it. I don't know.
Maybe.
but really, when we say this, we're talking about alcohol.
Yeah.
And alcohol is, again, we'll say it a million times, it's a poison. It is so damaging, not only to your health, but we have seen it cause so much damage to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a poison, it's a downer. When people drink alcohol, they are not the same person. You may think you are, but you're not. You even have just like one glass of wine or, a few beers, it changes you.
Yeah. There's a lot of avenues to go with the alcohol relationship route, right? And, it's unfortunate because alcohol is so prominent in our society. It's pushed. It's at every celebration. It's, kind of this expected thing, but it causes so much damage. Not like in relationships, but just like by the numbers, right? DUIs end up in deaths, right? Certain, diseases that come from alcoholism. Let's just, be blunt about, domestic abuse at home. A lot of times involves alcohol, a lot of law enforcement friends, when they say a lot of times when they go to domestic disputes, what's involved? Alcohol. Right? Typically a lot of times who's, the perpetrator? The dad, right? Because the dad is the alcoholic. The dad comes home, starts drinking, unfortunately starts, maybe the kids set him off or something like that. But we know that when you drink alcohol, it's not just the party, good time like the Budweiser commercials try and make it seem, right? For a lot of people, it puts you, it's a boom and then a boom, right afterwards. And so it's going to put you in a bad spot. You're going to be more irritable. You're going to, be irrational. And with that being said, you might do stupid stuff, right? So you might damage a relationship in a lot of ways. Alcohol damages relationships. So making bad decisions, saying things that you don't want to say, doing things that you don't want to do. And again, too, we've seen this with people where we see some couples and it's like they almost can't be together unless they're drinking.
Yeah, like we know people who they're always drinking, and it makes you wonder, like, if you cannot enjoy your partner unless you are under the influence of alcohol, there's a bigger problem there. And you need to learn to enjoy one another for who you are, for who the other person is, and not for who the alcohol makes you and who the alcohol makes the other person. And I just think that if you are a person who comes home at the end of the day and you drink alcohol in whatever form every single day, and you've never been around your partner without being under the influence, I mean, you need to ask yourself that. And
or why are you drinking?
Yeah, why?
Around that person, right? And alcohol, again, I'm not saying if you drink alcohol, you're a bad person, right? And I know a lot of people are like, well, I can have a beer and be fine, or I can have a glass of wine and be fine. And like, I get it, right? But we're saying that when it is taken to a unhealthy consumption level, when it's always being drunk, right?
When you prioritize having that alcohol, when you can't go to an event or have dinner without alcohol being involved.
Yeah, especially, like if maybe your marriage is not in the best spot, or certain things are causing kind of like boogies and tiffs, as we call them. Alcohol is probably just going to fuel that fire, and it's probably not a smart thing to be drinking during those times around your partner, right, or together, because again, alcohol is flammable. Literally,
literally, it's fuel for the fire.
It's fuel for the fire, right? So, go back to our other episodes especially where we talk about kava, right? And that's what we drink instead of alcohol, because it doesn't get you drunk. it doesn't take away your mind. In fact, it helps you connect more with your partner, really opens you up. It's becoming more popular in the United States. Obviously, you'll see more kava bars popping up because they're sober spaces, right? But kava still makes you feel good. And that's enough for the kava talk because today's not about kava. And I do want
always about kava.
Always about kava. Every episode, we always mention kava. All right. The last bonus thing I'll say, so I guess like number 9, is that couples who fart together, and this is scientifically proven.
Real talk, like truth.
Go look up the studies. Couples who fart together are happier together.
100%. And this is my
So rip ass around here.
Yeah. And this has always been my I guess it's not science. I think it's science. If you are not married yet, or even if you're early in your stages of marriage, if you cannot comfortably poop around your significant other, it's not going to last.
Get out of there, man.
And so that is my test. I feel like you need to feel comfortable pooping. We all do it. If you are not comfortable,
Heidi does it.
The idea of pooping around your partner, fix that.
Don't take our word for it. You're at the computer right now, watch us on your phone, Google studies about couples who fart together, and they're happier.
They stay together.
Yeah. So that being said, we're going to turn this off. I'm going to go take a big poop and fart in front of Heidi. So, because that makes our relationship really good. But
all right, guys, really, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Drop in the comments if you have any other tips, things that work for you guys. We would love to talk more about it. And thank you so much for tuning in.
All right, guys, we'll see you next time. See you.